we cannot sustain our spending. I understand a lot of it is for a good cause, but if we're honest with ourselves, nobody around this place ever stands up and says, I've got a bad idea and I need money for it. It's always a good cause. But this kind of spending is going to destroy America. It won't be a fiscal cliff. It won't be. One day we won't be fine and the next day falling off. That's not how this works. This kind of spending destroys you like termites. If you get termites, your house doesn't fall on a Tuesday, your house doesn't fall apart on a Wednesday, but those termites eat away and they eat away and they eat away and you know what I'm saying.
All right, listen, if locking your front door makes you extreme, then apparently half of America is guilty. Today, Senator John Kennedy absolutely dismantles Senator Alex Padilla over one simple idea, that illegal immigration should actually be illegal. No, shocking, right? If you want common sense back in politics, hit that like button, subscribe to KRI Reacts, and let's break down this moment because it says a lot about where this country is headed.
Trump promised to only go after violent criminals as part of the largest deportation program in American history. Yet sure enough, the first Sunday of the administration, less than a week into office, NBC reported that nearly half of the 1,200 arrests made as part of immigration enforcement actions were people with no criminal record. Now, look, we all agree that we should target all violent criminals. I hope I speak for all of us when we say we should target all violent criminals, whether they're immigrants or non-immigrants. Violent criminals are violent criminals. And Senator Scott, others of my Republican colleagues who have showcased some of the victims of crime in your respective states, my heart goes out to you, to the victims, to their families. Absolutely. But here's an inconvenient truth for many, and that's the fact that immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are also critical to the success of our economy, because the percentage of immigrants, documented and undocumented, who are violent criminals is a very, very small percentage. In closing, I know that over the next several weeks, several months, there's no doubt we'll hear a lot of talking points and misinformation by Republicans trying to distract the American people from what's really happening. So to folks watching at home, I have this to say. Follow the money, because it's going to start with cutting hundreds of billions of dollars in benefits that you've paid into, and it's going to end with billionaires getting yet another tax break.
I don't know how many foreign nationals came into our country illegally under President Biden. 8 million, 10 million, 12 million. I do know that it was a lot. And using the most conservative efforts, we probably added about 4 Nebraskas to the United States. We don't have the slightest idea who they are. We know some of them are children. We don't have the slightest idea where they are. I believe it was intentional. I don't know why President Biden and his team decided to do it, but only one of two circumstances are possible. Either it was intentional, or the people in charge you wouldn't hire to manage a Costco food court. And I don't think it was the latter. I think an intentional decision was made. I don't hate President Biden. I don't hate anybody. I hope he finds peace in retirement. But the fact is, we have an extra 12 million people who are in our country illegally. Most Americans don't support illegal immigration. They think illegal immigration is illegal. Duh. It's not because they're racist. They look at the southern border like they look at the front door at their home. Most Americans lock their front door at night. They don't do that because they hate everybody on the outside. They lock their front door at night because they love the people on the inside. And they want to know who's going in and out of their home. We've got to fix the problem of illegal immigration, and we have to have money to do it. Having said all of that, we cannot sustain our spending. I understand a lot of it is for a good cause, but if we're honest with ourselves, nobody around this place ever stands up and says, I've got a bad idea and I need money for it. It's always a good cause. But this kind of spending is going to destroy America. It won't be a fiscal cliff. It won't be. One day we won't be fine and the next day falling off. That's not how this works. This kind of spending destroys you like termites. If you get termites, your house doesn't fall on a Tuesday, your house doesn't fall apart on a Wednesday, but those termites eat away and they eat away and they eat away and you know what I'm saying. I hope we do this right. I'd like to see us do it together. I don't live in La La Land. I know that's unlikely, but I'm going to try to be here as much as I can and listen to my colleagues' ideas. And I think they're smart people, and I would invite them to make their suggestions. I for one, will take them seriously.
Welcome back to KRI Reacts. So we've got a heated exchange in Congress, and it perfectly highlights the disconnect between political talking points and real-world logic. Senator Alex Padilla comes in with a familiar argument. He says we should focus only on violent criminals and points out that many immigrants are important to the economy. Now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Nobody is arguing that violent criminals shouldn't be prioritized. That's common ground. But here's where things start to fall apart. Padilla admits that a large portion of those being detained don't have criminal records, and then pivots into saying immigrants, both legal and illegal, are essential to the economy. Then, almost immediately, he jumps to talking about benefits and billionaires. That's not a solution, that's a distraction. Instead of explaining how to fix illegal immigration, he shifts the conversation entirely. And that's something we've seen over and over again. When the issue gets uncomfortable, the focus moves somewhere else. Now, Senator John Kennedy steps in, and this is where things get interesting. Kennedy keeps it simple. He points out that millions of people have entered the country illegally, and that we don't fully know who they are or where they are. That's not fear-mongering, that's a basic concern any country should have. And then he uses one of the most relatable analogies you'll hear in politics. He compares the country to your home. You lock your door at night not because you hate people outside, but because you care about the people inside. That's not extreme, that's common sense. And this is really the core of the argument. Most Americans are not against immigration, they're against chaos. They want a system where people come in legally, where there's vetting, and where the rules actually mean something. Now, let's talk about the economic argument, because this is where a lot of misinformation gets pushed. The claim is that the economy depends on illegal labor, but we've seen situations where companies lose illegal workers and suddenly have to hire Americans. And guess what happens? People apply. Wages adjust. The system adapts. That's how a functioning economy works. So the idea that illegal immigration is some kind of necessary foundation for economic success doesn't really hold up under scrutiny. And then Padilla shifts again, bringing up benefits and tax cuts for billionaires. At that point, we're not even talking about immigration anymore. That's a completely different debate. It gives the impression that instead of addressing the issue directly, the goal is to redirect the conversation. Kennedy also touches on something bigger, and that's government spending. He compares it to termites slowly eating away at a house. It's not dramatic or immediate, but over time it causes serious damage. That's an important point, because while immigration is a major issue, the long-term financial health of the country matters just as much. At the end of the day, this isn't about being anti-immigrant. It's about whether laws should be enforced and whether the system should have structure. You can believe in legal immigration, compassion, and strong borders at the same time.
Those ideas are not mutually exclusive. But ignoring the problem or constantly shifting the conversation doesn't solve anything.